Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Great to be joined now by my good friend from the Reading Eagle, Rich Scarcella. Rich, thanks so much for your time. Great to have you with us today.
Good afternoon, Steve. How are you?
Doing okay. Rich, we're talking about a day of where the pendulum of emotions are extreme today. On the positive side, obviously, the signing class, and then the shock of Franco Harris. When you heard about Franco this morning, what ran through your mind?
I was confused. I went to bed late last night. I didn't hear anything, and the first thing I came downstairs, put the TV on, and on the Today Show there, Franco Harris, sad news. Franco Harris passed away, and I just thought of a lot. I thought of a lot of things. You know, obviously the first thing, because it is the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, I thought of that. But, you know, I also thought on a personal note, he was my father's favorite Penn State player, you know, because of his Franco's Italian heritage. Mm-hmm. But also, you know, and when my father met him, I can't remember exactly when, he was thrilled. And Franco was very kind, very nice to him. I wasn't there at the time, but, you know, it was something my father remembered the rest of his life. And, yeah, I mean, I was a little too young to remember his college playing days at Penn State, teaming with his good friend Lydell Mitchell. But I've interviewed him over the course of the years, and, you know, he's been gracious to me. And I know I remember writing a program for the 68-69 team's 25th anniversary, and couldn't have been nicer. It's just a terrible, terrible shock.
Yeah, no, it is, especially considering the timing of it, because of course his number 32 is being retired on Saturday night, and it'll be 50 years and one day on Saturday night from the Immaculate Reception. The timing is what makes it even more stunning.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And the good thing is, just through the course of today while doing some other things, I did see somebody post a quote from Franco when the Steelers announced that they were going to retire his jersey. At least he got to see that they were planning to retire his number. And but it's so sad that he's not going to be there this weekend for all the ceremonies, and it would have been just such a joyous occasion. And you know, for those, Steve, not you and I, but for those who are probably too young to remember, I remember that game so vividly, the Steelers-Raiders playoff game, watching it on a Saturday afternoon in Three Rivers Stadium, and I wasn't a Steelers or Raiders fan, but that play, I can't ever forget that play, seeing it. And you know, as so many people wrote, it is maybe it's at least one of the top 2 or 3 iconic plays in NFL history.
Maybe one of the top 2 or 3 plays in football history. I mean, not just the NFL, in terms of how iconic the play was. And, of course, the Raiders will tell you how controversial it was. Okay, now we'll swing the pendulum the other way. And so that from the dramatic shock and sadness of that to what the future of Penn State football happens to be. They have put together another top class along the way. Rich, you know, when you're looking at the great programs, they stack classes, and it seems on paper that that's what they're doing with this one.
Yeah, I mean, the recruiting services who follow this a lot closer than I do have them ranked 12th or 13th nationally. That's a really good class. The problem is Ohio State, one of their chief rivals, is 5th or 6th, and you can't afford, when you're competing against an Ohio State and a Michigan, you can't afford even one little slip. And I'm not saying this is a slip, this class, it's because it's not. But the point is, like, you've got to stack top 10 classes and top 5 classes. And, you know, there's a lot of good talent in this class. And as, you know, Sean Fitz from On3 said to me the other day, it's not a class that has a lot of big names, and it's not a class that's going to have a lot of guys playing next year, because you don't have a Drew Aller or a Nick Singleton or an Abdul Carter in this class necessarily. So, but I think it's a really good class, and boy, did they, almost every position they recruited. The one issue is the wide receiver position. That there was one wide receiver recruited in this class. Obviously, there's some depth issues, some talent issues, maybe perhaps at wide receiver. I'm expecting Penn State to help themselves in that area with the transfer portal.
You have a lot of guys that are going to be early entries as well, just like there have been in recent years. What do you think that has done to change the dynamic of getting guys on the field quicker because of early entries?
Well, I don't think there's any question that it helped the Nick Singleton and the Katron Allen. But you look at, maybe I'm wrong here, Abdul Carter didn't come in until...
No, he did not. You're right.
May or June, and he's had as large an impact on this team as anybody. I mean, you can argue, but it's... I don't know. I mean, I get it from an offensive line and a defensive line standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint, running backs. I understand it. For some kids, it's a really tough decision to give up your last months of high school to start your college career in January. For others, it's an easy decision. I'll give you an example right here in our area. Michael Mennett, 2016. He decided he wanted to finish out the school year and didn't enroll until June. 6 years later, his brother, Joey Schlaffer, is enrolling next month. Now, is that because Michael advised him to do that? Oh, I don't know that, but I'm saying every young man is different, and they're the ones, they and their families are the ones who know what's right for them.
What do you think the overall vibe is around Penn State football right now, and where it is now compared to what the thought process was a year ago?
I was on a call with Tom Luganbill, who has done, I don't know how many Penn State games this year, at least 2, right, Steve?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he did 2.
I think he did 2. And he is the recruiting analyst, national recruiting analyst for ESPN, and he said that they have a lot of momentum. Penn State has a lot of momentum because of the class last year, top 5 or 6 class, and the fact that they had such on-field success this year. And there's a lot of momentum in the program. A lot of people know the next 2 years could be special, could be. There's a lot of work to do before that, but, they have the makings of a couple really, really great years. So I think the national perception of Penn State is very high. It's a very positive one.
And I think, and adding to that is, look, the Rose Bowl certainly brings with it that level of prestige that you're looking for to then make the next step. They're finally going to get to 12 with the college football playoff. And if Penn State, in this particular year, Penn State would have been an 11 seed and played at Ohio State. How do you feel about home games in the opening round in a couple of years?
I like the home games. I would like to see the next round be home as well, because the top 4 seeds don't get a home game. They get a bye, but they don't get a home game. Right. I would like to see the quarterfinals also be played on college sites, and then the semifinals and the final be played at neutral sites. But I think because of the respect or the power of the bowl games, I think that's why you're only seeing the plan is just to have that first round game, those first round games on campus sites.
See, that's why I think that when this opens up to bidding in 26, when the ESPN contract runs out and the opportunities there for multiple TV partners, I could see going to 16 and the top 8 getting first round buys. That's only me because I'm thinking about, quote, inventory.
I absolutely can see this going to 16. And you're right, it could happen as early as 26. And, you mentioned here at the top of this segment, Joe Paterno. And you know it, and I know it.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard it. We heard him say it. How many times that he pushed for a playoff? How many times over the years? And he thought it should be an 8-team playoff.
That's
he
right.
never mentioned 4-team.
That's right.
He always mentioned an 8-team playoff. And I would think that he would be okay with a 16-team playoff. And I think it's. I'm with you, Steve. I think a 16-team playoff is not on the horizon. I think it's very close.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rich. Obviously, I'm just guessing, but I would think that he would look at the depth of the sport of college football, and he would think that 16 would be fair, right? And he did push for 8 the entire time. Mm-hmm. And remember, you're talking about somebody that was pushing for 8 the entire time in his lifetime as somebody who also pushed hard on academics. So he understood the balance between the two, and he wanted to see 8, and I think the depth of it brings it to 16. But I think people do have to remember that part. You're talking about somebody who believed in academics and also believed in expanding an expanded playoff.
He always wanted to do what was good for the sport of college football. He always had that in mind for the growth of the game. I'm not sure. I ran into somebody who used to work for him last week. I won't say who. A good man, real good man. He said, "What do you think Joe would think of the transfer portal and NIL?" He would not like it at all.
Right.
But Joe wanted to see the growth of the game, and I think a 16-team playoff is coming, and I'm with you. I think the 8 you're going to have the top 8 get buys, and then for the second round, and I think it'll be exciting. I mean, you'll have, that's something that I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but you're going to have fewer opt-outs if you have 16 teams in a playoff.
Yeah. No, exactly.
I mean, you'll have guys say, "Hey, I'm in a playoff game here. I'm not gonna skip this game." And I think that's good. I mean, I think that's healthy.
And that's a big part of it. And I know we haven't talked about it. I know I've talked about it, but yeah, there will be fewer opt-outs because it is a playoff game. That's why, I know Jackson Smith and Jigba's not going to play, but he didn't play all season. So that part I get. But, you're right. And people want to see the best against the best out there. Mm-hmm. And I think that you've got players out there that, quote, don't want to let the program down because it's a playoff.
Well, I can't tell. I'm not in a position to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do, and especially when it comes to protecting their futures. I will not argue that. They have to do what they think is best for them. But I will say, and just from the Penn State fan base, with the 6 starters who opted out last year, Jahan Dotson, I have no problem with. Obviously, my goodness. But the fans were really upset. The Penn State fans were really, really bothered by that. And I think the fact that there have been so few opt-outs this year, and obviously it has a lot to do with the Rose Bowl, but it also has a lot to do with the leadership on this team. I think the fans have really embraced that and are very excited about this game against Utah.
Rich, thanks so much. Appreciate it. I know you're going to get a chance when you go out there to see your son. Enjoy it, cherish it, and I can't wait to see you in California.
Hey, Steve, thanks very much. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Rich.